Good evening. Welcome to Africa iShare, where we talk about everything African. Today we're having a discussion on technology, the digital economy in Kenya. And we have Ian, who is a tech expert, who's going to be taking through how technology is disrupting the Kenyan industry. So before we get into the discussion, maybe Ian, you may introduce yourself, and then Christine, you can just say hi.
Hi guys, I'm Ian. Thank you for inviting me. I've been in this space for approximately 3, 4, 5 years, especially in the development part of technology. Yes, I'm Ian Munyinge.
Hi everyone, this is Christine. Always part of this podcast, and I look forward to the discussion tonight. Chido.
Thank you so much and welcome Ian. So before we maybe get into the talking points, you might want to just take us through what you do. I think in your introduction you said you do development, I don't know, of technology. So maybe you can just give us a summary and, that.
Yeah, so thank you. I mostly deal with developing mobile applications, that is, and web applications. This may vary depending on clients' needs, but they basically border on either business management solutions or customer to like end products like e-commerces, service platforms, things like those, like places, marketplaces of either services or products.
Sounds very interesting. Any platforms that you sort of help develop that we are aware of? I think as foreigners, when we hear of mobile money applications in Kenya, the first thing that comes into mind is M-Pesa, And I would also want to assume that there might have been much of work going on your side, given that the COVID-19 pandemic really had an impact on how digital technologies and platforms were being adopted across the continent.
Yeah, so we have developed several solutions. One of the most notable one would be, and the recent one is a platform like that is called Mekwangu. It helps ease the process of getting a mechanic, for instance. So a user logs into the platform, they see a list of mechanics and a list of services. So they can either book, it geolocates, it works in such a way that you can see the mechanic closest to you, ordered by how good they are based on the reviews in the platform. This now reduces the problem of the mechanic when you take your car to a mechanic and maybe they are not competent and they don't tell you that, or they take it and take it to another mechanic. So like now, if you own like a unique brand of car, you can be able to specifically get someone who is an expert at that. Yeah, so that is like one notable one. Other things have been solutions that make business processes easier for business owners. So you find systems like points of sales, like the one that you key in when people buy. So for these ones, they are further developed to use things like SMS. Customers get SMS receipt. They store the customer bad data so that you can retarget in future. They keep your sales. They show you your profit margins, the best working products. You can transfer stocks from one to another. And all this happens in real time. So all these products are more of real-time products that help specific problems in the community. Yeah, Kenya is quite adaptive when it comes to technology, though it still has its own challenges.
Interesting. Maybe just before I go to Christian briefly, I just wanted to ask, maybe out of interest, you said that most of these solutions, happen in real time, and I couldn't help but wonder, are they in any way linked to blockchain? Because from my understanding, that's just one of those big tech innovations that have got, real time settlement of, products, transactions, and everything.
Yeah, so they are not linked to blockchain as of yet, but we are thinking of how we can, like, soon include artificial intelligence into these applications. For example, if it could be able like to analyze customer, most of these AI things require a lot of data to build on, and most of these solutions are much newer solutions. So after we have built a lot of database, we can be able even to predict probably customer behavior, their purchasing behaviors and the kind. But none of the solutions we have worked on currently involves blockchain at a large scale that is in production yet. Because the blockchain, its power is in the decentralization, such that if you are part of the ecosystem, it's like if the regulator, assuming any of these solutions runs in a single server, So what blockchain would bring the difference is if it ran on everyone's phone. And so as far as there's a phone that is online, the system will always be on and the data will be permanent in some kind of way. But I have not been privileged to work on something that launched in that space. I just have an understanding of the space.
That's interesting. Um, Maybe you might want to think around having, the private consortium blockchain platforms. Should you decide to, I don't know, venture in that, because those are a bit permissioned. So it's necessarily not everybody who has got, a smartphone and whatever who can actually use or get access to that. But maybe, Christine, what has been your observation, within the Kenyan economy, industries, and whatever, the adoption of technology, in sectors like tourism, agriculture, manufacturing. I know that there are certain jurisdictions where you're now hearing of 3D printing that has revolutionized manufacturing of products and goods. And you also have, e-commerce, and innovations in the financial service sector. So as a Kenyan, and I mean, having obviously observed the changes that have been happening recently with the adoption of disruptive technologies, what really has been your observation in respect of the adoption of technology across sectors?
Chido, this is a very interesting discussion. I like how yourself and Ian went in depth into the technical stuff. But as regards Kenya, I think so. Let me give it as a difference between like what would be happening like in South Africa and in Kenya. Is that in Kenya, most sectors you can't say that they are corporate driven, meaning like if it's like farming, it's not commercial farming in the scale that would be happening like in South Africa or in the more developed countries. It's subsistence kind of farming. So meaning that if there is someone using technology, it may not be the entire industry using it. It could be just possibly some forward-looking farmers, or it would be someone who is trying to introduce these sorts of technologies to that sector. Like recently, I met someone who works for, I think, an NGO whose work is what they are aiming to do is to give more tech solutions to the farming sector, something about prediction of patterns, weather patterns, and I think the soils, and then determining what works best, and then taking the products to market. So I would say, unlike other countries where you see like there is huge use of technology by maybe the biggest player in that sector, in Kenya it's everyone, almost each subsistence person doing it. And this it's not just in farming, but even in the retail. So like in the retail sector, there's the big supermarkets, for instance. So each will develop like its own app, or they will have a solution that they are using in-house. The same with like the banking sector. You find like each bank has different solutions. Of course, there are banks which are doing much better than others, while there are others which are not doing as great in the tech side. But the big difference, I think, with Kenya, which I think stands out, is because of M-Pesa, which you mentioned, which because of how much it's used, it's integrated to a lot of the solutions where there is payments being done. Last week, we were having a discussion again around the issues of tech, and in the discussion, the person was telling me that the big difference, like when you go to, I mean, different African countries, you find that there is no one central payment system that you can go to a bank and find that someone using their phone, for instance, can use M-Pesa or a certain app. Each different sector has its own payment system, which is unlike Kenya. So that now anyone who has a payment solution, they are most likely integrated to M-Pesa because of the ease of payment. So Chido, that's what I would say to begin with.
That's very interesting, Christine. I as an international trade and investment lawyer, I would obviously be watching closely or following through developments that are happening, within my area of work. And that's why my mind ran to 3D printing. That's why my mind obviously goes to the innovations in the financial service sector. And I think we've had a discussion here, maybe for Ian's benefit, where you spoke of mobile money solutions. In Zim, I think we were actually one of the pioneers of mobile money. We have got what we call Eco Cash. And I think it was less of an adoption of technology and an embrace of tech innovation in the country, but more of somebody trying to come up with a solution to address a problem that was actually ongoing at that particular moment, which was the cash crisis. And you would almost see that even during, I like to talk so much about the COVID-19 pandemic, because when you then look so closely or you watch closely, you'd realize that there was a high uptake of technology and innovations within the tech space during the COVID-19 period. Not really because countries or people really were just receptive to technology, but it had something to do with necessity. The idea that I can't go to the shops to buy goods, so I might as well, think around having an application I can put on my phone where I can order goods online and have them delivered to my house. I can't I can't go to the bank right now because of COVID-19. There is a lockdown and all these other issues. So I might as well start thinking around ways of accessing money or sending money to somebody else or receiving money to somebody else, without having that person to person contact, right? But I just wanted to ask Ian to say, as a tech developer, what has been your analysis generally on the uptake or the people receiving technological innovations? Are the people really receptive, especially in Africa, or it's just an issue of necessity to say there's a problem that we have identified and there is no solution? The only solution that we can have is within the tech space, so we are left with no choice.
Okay. So looking at, I think Kenya specifically is very adoptive of technology, because if you look at the complexity of some things like even WhatsApp, basically WhatsApp, if you look like a few years back, not very many people were using WhatsApp, but now WhatsApp, including the groups, has become this like everyday tool for people to use. I don't think it's more of a necessity. I think they even love it, because even as you look at the behavior of people online, like Kenyans on Twitter, they are like so big. So they like spend a lot of time both on these technologies. And now as they morph and turn into what you are saying, like artificial intelligence and what they become simpler, I think Kenyans, to be honest, they love technology. Even though it solves their problems, they are still. I even feel like there are not enough solutions that people are looking for. And then another problem that I've realized is that most of the time you see it's as if we are copying from the West. So you find like there's a lot of structure in the West, but then when you come to Kenya, most people they are informal sectors, as Christine stated. So you will find that a solution that works so well abroad won't work here. So you have to pivot, you have to use USSD, but people are so receptive. Because even if you look at simple links as bulk SMS, you'll find that very many people use them. Those quotes, getting quotes, I think due to the interactive nature of technology and what it's becoming and its accessibility, I think it is now like has become a part of life that is solving problems. Because even some people are just there having fun, but then now they want, so people come to you asking you, like for example, as a developer, the way TikTok works, can we have like a similar platform in which I can market my products? So I think I would say like Kenya specifically, they are in love with technology, but it has not gotten to a place where it serves them as they expect. So maybe that is also another factor that slows the adoption. But I don't think they just use it because they have no other option. I think most people love to use technology since it makes their life easier.
That's a very good observation and a different perspective. Now that you have said that Kenyans are a bit different and they love technology, I can't help but poke Christine a little bit and ask her about you know taxing the digital economy, tech innovations, and all this. I mean, as a tax lawyer, I would have done an injustice if I don't ask you how you view the friction that exists currently between tech companies, tech innovations, and taxation. What are your thoughts, Christian?
Okay, Chido, before I go there, I also wanted to say, as regards maybe adoption, I think the thing to say is that in Kenya, as much as technology is loved, the cost to the person who is developing, so that would be Ian, and the cost of the person who is trying to build this technology and push it to the market to be adopted is very high. So as if someone comes and says, I want this product which will offer this sort of services to the market, the cost of taking that thing to market and to even get people to adopt it sometimes can be quite hectic. Like in the case that Ian mentioned of Mekwangu, because I'm aware of it. But then to answer you, taxing the digital economy, I'm telling you that topic is close to my heart. Just because I'm a tax expert in that, but also because I'm writing quite a lot on it. And thing to say is that when you speak to a developer, or when you think about it from a tech side, the solution the solutions given to the market are very, very good, and the creativity that goes into it to look at where do I place this to attract more people, how do we design the UI, how do I make it go to market, and all these things. You see the amount of work that goes into those things, and then the taxman comes and just tries to tax almost at the surface of it, because what happens is, to be taxed you must make a profit, but to make that profit within the tech sector is very hectic. So like I was reading somewhere, like by the time Netflix was hitting, I'm not sure if they're at what's their level of profitability yet, but the amount that has to go in the investment is so high, so that now on the tax side, the fight is always like that. You're coming at the end when you've put in so much, and you're acting as if we are just coming to disrupt the brick and mortar economy. You're saying that now you can shop on online, and therefore you should tax us in this way, but you don't realize how much goes into this, and maybe you should give us a break. On that side, I understand it, and say, yeah, maybe to immediately start taxing without giving maybe breaks or incentives for these investors, that may not be the best way forward. But then also looking at it on the other hand, is that the same way, if I'm walking into a kiosk and I'm going to buy let's say shoes, well, those wouldn't be in a kiosk, but let's assume I'm going to buy something there that's possibly subject to VAT, value added tax. So in Kenya it's at 16%. There should be no reason why, if my colleague, someone sitting next to me, shops on Amazon and gets them without the 16% VAT. Because you see, the thing is that when you're able to access products without tax from outside, what happens is that these companies that are here, they are unfairly they're disadvantaged in that scenario. And also, of course, because there's quite a lot of profitable digital businesses, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all the promotions that happen there, it's money going to them which is not being taxed into Kenya. Uber. So when you think about it, I think there are some businesses that should be taxed, and maybe the other businesses that should be given a break. So I think it's just a balancing act. Chido?
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much. Maybe if Ian can tell us from his perspective as a developer, what has been the challenges that tech innovations are facing in Africa generally, or maybe in Kenya? Because I know that Kenya might be quite a different jurisdiction, specifically because you've got young people that are receptive to technology and they genuinely enjoy it. And as a result of that, you'd realize that maybe the challenges might necessarily not the same as those that any other African country would be experiencing, or any developer would be experiencing in any other African country. So this is just going to be a general perspective to say, what are the challenges from your conversations and observations that tech developers and their innovations are actually facing in Africa?
Okay, thank you, Chido. So what I have realized over time, Kenya is very competitive and the entry to market is very easy. So what happens, people's expectation on maybe the cost of development and such things is usually very low. So one of the first challenges I have experienced personally is the is one okay there are two issues. One is the quality of talent. So assuming the developers and teams, since this is something new to Africa, and so you find that most of the people who even understand it are not experienced in other things. Like the way in the book Mastery, they say being a master is when you understand the people and your skill still. So you find that a developer might be probably someone who's very young. A majority of them, a very large number of them are very young. So then you find they have very poor like work ethic and these other things, but they are very good at technology. So then now their deliverability is very slow, such that it doesn't justify the huge cost that it is required to develop. And then now you look on the other side of the client, the expectation is not that high since they have been working in quotes effectively without these solutions before. So you find that the adaptability even becomes a problem because you find that it's adapted from the top. And then again, as I said, you find most big businesses will not necessarily look for developers. They will buy like pre-made software from either Microsoft or QuickBooks. But then as I was saying, there's a big disconnect between the quality and the way it solves the actual problem of the person who actually uses the solution. So what happens is that now most of the project you find there is like people are at loggerheads because one, I would say the technology is not mature enough such that there are people who are competent, both as who are masters, I would say, because the fact that you can code well does not mean you'll produce a good product. You have to do it like for long enough until you get to a point where you master both the people, understand, so that you can organize the UI, which is like where the US has gotten to. But again, all these challenges, I think with time, as more people adopt, of course, it becomes more affordable for those willing to start solutions, and then there's a larger market pool. And also, there's another real problem of it being that, for example, I had a team in 2019, 2020, and so the company that gave us the contracts were not able to pay well. So we post those projects. So these guys learned to code on their own, and now one of them actually called me today, and he's telling me he's leaving for the States, where he's being offered $130,000 per year, which is approximately like 1 million Kenya shillings per month, to work in the States. So it happens. And now, if I had a team of a designer and two programmers, and both of no, and three programmers, two of these programmers are now heading to the US. And now those are like the people who are very close to me. So now you see the reward abroad is very high, and the problem with tech, it's like a universal language. So I think Kenyan problems will be like what Jack Ma says. The problem that the world is experiencing today will be solved by tomorrow's generation. As more and more people adopt, more businesses try apps and they succeed and they have money to pay their talent and keep talent locally to avoid this dragging of talent abroad. Because it's very crazy if I had 5 developers and I had 3 developers and 3 of them have gone to the US, it means they are good. But then it means the market rate is not good enough, even the understanding between the customers. And that is why you find very few people can try to do apps or things like those because it's a new space, it's not well understood, and the likes. And then the speed of iteration. So I think we are in early stages, but again, as Jack Ma says, the solutions will be provided by the next generation. Because with things like AI, not necessarily blockchain, but AI, artificial intelligence, you can be able to even know how you will type a text to a specific customer different from someone else. So if this person is liked a post on this, the system can automatically generate something like that. To the extent that AI these days even generates like photos or things like those, it will like all come to be in line sooner or later when the technology advances and there are more talent. And so I think the solution will come finally when there's more money made from tech. Therefore, there's more money to be reinvested back in tech, giving the investors confidence, and then the talent will have matured because like it is hardly you will hear that people in the bank have a problem with the labor force. Yeah, that is what I would comment regarding the challenges in the tech space, the ones I've experienced and the way I think they should be solved.
That's interesting. Thank you so much, Ian. Christine, maybe from your perspective, what have been the challenges within the tech space? You can speak maybe as a tax lawyer or just a tech enthusiast. What have you observed?
Okay, so I think, and this is from my little attempt at offering solutions in the tech world, in my other work when I'm not a tax lawyer. And I think it's the cost, especially of successfully breaking even. So the amount of, let's say, I've developed a solution that requires to be adopted by several companies. At first, there is how much I have to put in to market it to these companies. One, with the thought that they think they can develop their own solution, therefore, why should they buy my solution? But then also, the investment in terms of like what Ian is saying, the developers coming and changing and all that. So when you consider the amount of time I will need to develop the product, and then because of the many changes before it hits market, and then after it hits market, to get it adopted successfully. And then the thing to say, especially in Kenya, compared to like the UK, you cannot underestimate how good infrastructure and education levels and spending power of people can propel technology. So, for instance, the solution called Mekwangu that Yan mentioned, if you look at it, the people who are needed on the platform, mechanics, who in Kenya tend not to be the most educated and highly skilled people. So, first of all, the amount of time you have to spend to explain this solution to them, not because they don't like technology, but to bring them up to speed on like what is required of them and what needs to be done. But then also, secondly, their power to even have like smartphones and to be able to afford internet. So when you look at all these products and how much is actually needed, you find that most times the purchasing power of people sometimes limits. And if you listen to like conversations about like the big successful e-commerce platforms globally, eBay, Amazon, when you look at how much they are used in Africa, you hear like or I was reading some articles where they're saying Africa needs a different strategy. One, because like in Kenya, for instance, it's not every road that's marked, so that when I order something, it will of course be delivered to me. There has to be the local means. You know, you have to have a border guy. That's motorbike people. You have to get them onto the network so that they can bring you the things that you have ordered, because sometimes the roads are not accessible or they're not even marked. So I would say you cannot underestimate the value of infrastructure, good roads, good internet, and also the purchasing power of the population, and then also the literacy. Because all those, as far away as they seem from technology, those are the things that will propel the adoption, and how quickly it's adopted and how much profitability comes out of it, and therefore you'll be able to like pay and retain talent. Chido, that's what I would say.
Yeah, you really do raise important points, Christine. Infrastructure. You know, we always talk about the digital divide, you know, within Africa, and it's a real thing. The cost of data and, you know, the levels of accessibility are quite problematic. It's such a situation that needs to be addressed. Maybe in the interest of time, we might as well wrap up and then pick up this discussion some other time. What then become your closing thoughts, Ian? What would you want our listeners to take home with?
Most importantly, I would think from what I've learned, especially from like Mekwangu, we should be confident, more confident to do like our stuff our own way. Like if you these days, there was a project I was working on, and I would see like the power of WhatsApp groups. Like I think people should be more confident, and the developer should think in a less complicated way. If I would say, like, just how would you solve this problem in the easiest of ways? Because like now you realize with time that solutions like this service where you get like service providers, mechanics, whoever, you find that the best way to do it is maybe using SMS, but you'd not have thought of it that way. So I think the most important thing would be people to keep working on it. Eventually, I'm feeling like we are very close to a place where we'll have our own thing. You know, like M-Pesa completely failed in, I think even in South Africa, in the US, because of it's only designed for someone who's like in Kenya, because it is very organic. It really puts into mind the African market. And then there's a lot of money to be made because there's a big population. But then now we have to think different. Like exactly what Christine is saying, we don't have marked roads. How can we probably use AI to identify streets? What solutions are there in the West that can be modified to work better in Africa? But most of importantly, it's like changing the mindset to surely solve a problem and not do it like someone else has done before. I think with that, it will give better results to everyone, whether it's the investors or the developers, and to share in spaces like these podcasts and whatever. Because we know what has brought like all this success in tech is the ability to share and to recreate something that someone has done, the openness of the whole tech space. Yeah, so those would be my closing thoughts.
Thank you so much for those insights, Ian. Christine, what would be your closing remarks?
That we should have more discussions like this on Africa iShare. There's a lot I've learned from this discussion. Most times when we have these discussions, I think we think about them from the policy side, and I have done both. I've been a scholar, writing scholar work, and I've been on the business side. They're very different. They can cross-share knowledge, which is important, but it's very different. Even the thinking is different.
Thank you so much, Christine, for that. Yeah, sure. I agree with you that we need to continue having this discussion. Ian, we really want to thank you so much for taking time to come and share your knowledge with us. And I really do agree that more often than not, we always look at things from a policy perspective. We say, this is what has to be done. These are the policies that have to be introduced. And it's usually in an abstract because there is not very much interaction with the business community and the developers in this regard. And having you on board today has really given us a different perspective to how we need to approach this issue of the digital economy. And we're so grateful that you decided to come here. And thank you, Christine, for always bringing your lawyer perspective. I know that every time we talk about, the digital economy, tech innovation, um, it always comes back to, taxation, regulation. How do we regulate this? And I think that's another discussion that we can always have at a later stage. But I'm really grateful for all your insights. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening. We value your feedback. You can always reach out to us via our many social media platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. But for now, it's goodbye. Thank you.